Hey friends, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Alexa, and over on this cozy corner of the internet, we love all things cozy decor, books, writing, and everything creative lifestyle. So if you're interested in any of that, please like and subscribe and follow along with the creative journey of this channel. So today I wanted to dive into some of my fall favorites of this season. I kind of just want to collect my thoughts and create a really cohesive little list of all of my favorite things that I'm doing this season, all of my favorite crafts, recipes, as well as all of the cozy content I'm consuming, like different movies, shows, and books. So I wanted to start us off with some of the crafts I've been working on recently, and if you've seen any of my other fall videos, you know that I have been working on a really fun little project, and I've been learning to embroider actually, which has been quite the journey for me. I've been working on embroidering some fall sweatshirts here, and you can see this one right here says cinnamon season and it has a little cinnamon roll on it. So I've been working on this one this season, and I don't know about the rest of you, but for some reason I always feel like if I'm doing a cozy craft, I have to be doing something else too, and maybe that's like a productivity problem, personal problem that I have, but I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but I definitely do. So when I'm embroidering, I've been usually watching a cozy show or like listening to an audiobook, but recently I've been watching Dawson's Creek, which is on my list of shows for the season actually, but it's my sister's favorite show and she's been trying to get me to watch it for years. So I finally caved and started watching it over the summer, but I feel like it's the perfect kind of transitional show for summer into fall, and I feel like it really balances those two seasons really well, but especially because a lot of the seasons begin with the start of school year, like in August, and kind of continues on through the season and throughout the year. It took me a couple of weeks to do this sweatshirt just because I was still learning how to embroider, and I did some practice patterns outside of this. And if you look really closely here, maybe I shouldn't even show you, but like it's very homemade, we'll say that much. So it's kind of cute, and like I think it has its own like appeal in that way, but it definitely looks like kind of homemade to me, which it is. So, you know, of course it's going to look a little bit like that, especially if I'm pretty new at this. And then my husband saw it and thought it was so fun, and he was like, oh, what if you like made me one too? So I am. So I think you can tell I've gotten a lot better already, and it's not perfect by any means, but basically what I did was I designed this little cinnamon season sticker here, and it was based on another design I saw, but this is just for me and my husband. I'm not selling these or anything, so it's just for us. Basically, if you've never done embroidery and you're interested in getting into it, there's like these little stickers that you can like print your design or draw your design on the paper, peel it off, stick it on your fabric, and then you can embroider over it. And when you're done, you wash it off and it literally dissolves in the water. So that's what I did with this one, and I'm doing that with this as well. also want to talk about some of my favorite snacks of the season. And one of my favorite seasonal items that comes around every year, I think starting last year maybe, is the Olipop Crisp Apple Soda. This one is just so fun and refreshing, especially with all of the pumpkin flavored things out there. I love mixing it up a little bit, especially this year, and like going back to a lot of those classic fall flavors like apple, like blackberry, and obviously pumpkin. But I feel like in the past few years we've gotten a little pumpkined out because it's just been so much of the rage that some of those other flavors have kind of fallen to the wayside. So this year I've been very much into apples and cinnamon, and I'm always into honey flavors, but I feel like I've been kind of mixing those flavors too, and that's been a lot of fun. And then we also have these Tate's Bake Shop pumpkin spice cookies, which I had for the first time last October. They are super tasty. They taste more like gingerbread and they have little white chocolate chips in them. They're honestly pretty pricey, so I am probably only getting these once this year, but definitely a fun treat. I've been a baking enthusiast for pretty much my whole life. My mom taught my siblings and I how to bake and cook when we were really little, and we were always super involved in the process. So I feel like a lot of my passion for baking kind of goes back to that nostalgia of it. And I feel like the fall and winter season are definitely the most nostalgic for me in that sense. And my grandmother is also an incredible baker and cook. I have a lot of nostalgia for just huge family gatherings where my siblings and cousins and I would be super involved in some of the baking and helping my grandma out in the kitchen. And so this fall I really wanted to start carrying on certain traditions like baking apple pie. If you saw one of my recent videos, my husband and I went to Julian for the weekend, which is known for its pie and its apples, and we did go apple picking at one of the orchards there. So we came back with this huge barrel of apples. So I decided to make an apple pie, and I reached out to my grandmother and she sent me her mother's apple pie recipe. So this is actually my great grandmother's apple pie recipe that I used to bake my pie this season. So that just felt like a very cozy, nostalgic thing to do for me, and I feel like cooking or baking those family recipes always ties me back to my family again, and it just carries so much nostalgia and just sweetness with it. So that was just a really sweet project that I did. And yeah, I think especially during the fall season, it's a great time to be extra thankful for what we have and you know, kind of re-explore those memories that tie us back to who we are, our identity and our family, and all of these different things that really do make the season so nostalgic for us. And I love thinking about why the season of fall is so nostalgic, and I think, at least for me, that's a big reason why. also been making a lot of really fun different fall coffees and like flavored cappuccinos for the season. So one of my favorite things to do recently has been making a honey pumpkin spice cappuccino. So I just take a huge scoop of Manuka honey and I add in a bunch of pumpkin spice to the espresso, and it's delicious. You should definitely try that out if you have an espresso machine at home. It's totally worth it, and honey is obviously like really healthy natural sugar. So if you're using Manuka honey, it has a lot of really good healing properties too. So that's my way to kind of get a fun sugary coffee drink in the morning, but still make it really healthy, and yeah, but it's still fun. And then a few weeks ago, I did try making a blackberry pie syrup. I made it pretty much just the way you would make a blackberry jam, except I didn't boil it as long, so it was more of a syrup than jam. And I did try putting that into some of my coffee. I ended up drizzling it over ice cream, which was really delicious. I even made peach cobbler and poured it over that, so that was just so good. And I really want to make cinnamon rolls this season. I have like one of the best homemade cinnamon roll recipes. I'll link it below if I can find it. I think I have it saved away somewhere, but it's a great recipe. It's the best one I've tried, I think. So I definitely want to make those. And then my mom recently sent me, I think it was like a maple scone recipe, and I love baking scones, and I do have one recipe that I love so much, and I've made it honestly probably over 100 times at this point in my life. But yeah, she sent me a different recipe with like a maple flavoring that I want to try, so I think that would be a lot of fun. And then in terms of seasonal cooking, I really want to do a lot of roasted vegetables, especially squash, and I think one of the best parts about fall is the seasonal baking and cooking that we get to do. I think especially like in an age where we've super romanticized fall, and we've really as a culture like started leaning into that New England fall, and honestly probably only half of the country really experiences that kind of specific fall during this time, and I live in Southern California, so obviously I don't experience that New England fall, which does make me sad, I admit. But I think no matter where we're living in the country, there are certain ways to embody that essence of fall in your own way without forcing it. And I think the best way to do that is seasonal cooking. So that's why I've been really into apples lately, is that they are very seasonally prevalent here in Southern California. And you know, a lot of squash and vegetables and roots, those kind of things are also very seasonal, very relevant. So I want to, this season, make a lot of like roasted veggie mix, and I'm also going to be making a chicken pot pie from scratch, which I'm really excited about because that one just feels like really hearty and warming. And my mom would make that a lot during like the fall season in Colorado where I grew up, and that was kind of our comfort meal during the colder months. Again, I'm really just leaning into that nostalgia and like the natural elements that come with fall, no matter where I'm living, or like based on where I'm living. Okay, now really quickly, let's talk movies and TV shows. So like I mentioned, I've been watching Dawson's Creek recently, which is a very good transitional show for like summer into fall, and especially because a lot of the seasons begin with the fall and the characters going back to school. And like I mentioned, my sister has been trying to get me to watch this for literally years, and I finally broke down and started watching it, and I do have to say I can only handle so much of it at one time because the characters are very dramatic, but it's a lot of fun. If you get far enough into like the third season, I feel like that's where it really starts to get interesting. And then as far as other fall shows go, I've heard a lot of people are really loving Gossip Girl this season, and It is a very fun show, but again, it's super dramatic, and that's another one I can only take in like small quantities because there's too much drama, but there are certain episodes where like it's definitely a fall vibe. So I think I might go back and watch a few of those episodes. I've also heard there are lots of lists out there on the internet with different Friends episodes, which are very fall themed, and you know, they always do the Thanksgiving ones, and a lot of the time they have like a football or some kind of fall episode. I think we all love a good classic rom-com now and then, especially if it's from the 80s or 90s, and You've Got Mail is kind of the epitome of a classic fall seasonal rom-com. So that is definitely one of my favorites. I'll be watching that one this season for sure. And I feel like I always kind of forget about like fall sports movies around this time of year, and there's a lot of really great classics, such as Remember the Titans and Rudy, that I always forget about, and I haven't seen them I think since high school, so I just remember them being really inspirational films, and I would love to go back and rewatch those. October Sky is another one that fits into a similar category, except not, I guess, because it's about a young scientist in, I think, 1957 who is building a rocket ship during the Sputnik sort of era. And then in terms of like autumn academia, we have obviously Dead Poets Society. That's one of my favorite movies, but it always makes me cry, so I have to be emotionally prepared for that one. And then Good Will Hunting is another one of those autumn academia movies that really just sets the tone for the season and really inspires you with its story. I would also put Greta Gerwig's Little Women on this list because I think the version with Winona Ryder is also a classic for sure, but I feel like that one is more Christmassy, and then Greta Gerwig's version is more autumnal in my opinion. I think Knives Out is a really fun one to add to the list if you're in like a murder mystery mood, and we all love Chris Evans in his cable knit sweater, so. And then as far as fantasy movies go, Harry Potter is a classic, and I feel like we've kind of forgotten about that in the past few years, but there's a resurgence of nostalgically rewatching the series. And then I personally love The Princess Bride, and it's not explicitly a fall film, but it just feels right to watch during the fall, if that makes any sense. And I would say the same thing about the movie Stardust. If you haven't seen that one, I feel like it has a lot of similar Princess Bride vibes, and also it does have a group of witches, so it's very witchy and very magical, really sets the tone for the season. As for books, I'm just gonna give you a really quick run through of 5 of my personal favorites for the season, because I did just upload a full 20-minute long in-depth book recommendation video, so if you like any of the ones I mentioned or you're interested and you want a little more, be sure to go check out that video. But starting off with probably the most well-known modern classic for fall is The Secret History by Donna Tartt, and this is kind of known now as the original dark academia book, and it's about a group of students who attend a very small private college on the East Coast, and they get very sucked into kind of the philosophical whims of their classics professor. And it is a bit of a mystery, maybe like a psychological thriller, but instead of trying to figure out who committed the book's opening crime, you're trying to figure out why they did it, because you already know who did it, but you don't know why. Next we have Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte. If you know me, you know that I love reading the Bronte sisters during the fall because they always just set the mood perfectly. And Wuthering Heights is one of those classics that if you haven't read it, I think you should, especially with the recent dropping of Emerald Fennell's trailer for the 2026 film, because I think that's going to be an absolute disaster and it doesn't represent this book at all. So I definitely think you should go check this one out. I do have to warn you though, none of the characters are likable. There's not really a protagonist. It's very dark and moody and like the epitome of Gothic literature. But if you like those kind of vibes, especially for October, I think you would love this. Another classic I would recommend to you is Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. And this is a very philosophically and artfully heavy story about kind of obsession and the desire for immortality and perpetual youth. And I just think Oscar Wilde's prose is beautiful, and a lot of the concepts he delves into are just really interesting to think about. And if you want something that's going to really make you think deeply and work for the story, go read this one. Then we have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab, which is kind of like a historical fantasy in a sense about this woman who basically strikes a deal with the devil in a sense, and ends up living this sort of immortal life for 300 something years. And her curse is that no one can remember her until she finally meets one person who does, and it changes everything. But it feels tonally very dark and moody, and we kind of get to travel with this character throughout the centuries, and it's a lot of fun. Last but not least, we have The Scorpio Races by Maggie Stiefvater, which is probably the most atmospheric modern classic that I've read, and I'm categorizing it as a modern classic. I don't know if anyone else has, but I am. So it's about this small community on the Scottish coast where on the 1st of every November there is a deadly horse race on the beach, and the horses that these characters are racing are not normal horses. They are a fantastical breed of water horses, which is why the competition is so dangerous. But like I said, this is probably the most atmospheric book you can read for October and November, so definitely give this one a read. That's all I have for you today, but thank you so much for watching. Please like and subscribe if you haven't already, and leave a comment down below if you have anything to add to this list. And I'll see you next time.